There are two very different ways to play Ganyu, both offering very good DPS. In this video, let's go over both of these and see which one you should build. Hello everyone, it's me Therapy. In this video, we'll be taking a look at freeze and melt Ganyu builds. I'll go over weapons, artifacts, team comps, and how to play both of these teams. Before we look at each build, let's go over weapons first, as these don't really change with the build. Ammo Spell, of course, being the best of the 5-star weapons, but all the 5-star weapons will be better than the 4-star weapons. As for 4-star weapons, I recommend just using Prototype Crescent Bow. It's the best option we have, but make sure to hit weak spots or else it won't be as good as Blackcliff Bow. Hamayumi Bow is really only good with melting, but we'll talk about that later when we do get to that section. That's all for the weapons. Let's jump into talking about each build now. Just a quick note, if you're watching the background gameplay for the freeze build, I don't have the perfect team comp for this, so my damage is all lower, so don't base your opinion on freeze build off of the gameplay you see. Freeze build is what I recommend for people that just got Ganyu to use. Get to know Ganyu's playstyle and decide if you want more damage in the future. This build uses the 4-piece Blizzard artifact. This artifact gives 20% crit rate if the enemy has cryo applied, or 40% if frozen, together with our Ascension 1 passive talent, which gave us 20% crit rate to all Frostflake arrows after one has already been fired. This makes up for a lot of our crit rate needs, putting us at about 65% crit rate without even building anything that has crit rate yet. Most people use another cryo unit, most of the time this is Diona, for 15% more crit rate with cryo resonance. And of course we're going to be needing a hydro character for freeze, and this really only comes down to two characters that you can really pick from, which would be Mona or Kokomi. As for the last characters, it's almost always the animal character. It doesn't really matter who it is, it just depends on the situation. Of course Shenhe was also just released, but with Shenhe we'll have to go without our ultimate and Viridescent, which gives us 40% resistance shredding. Should you go with Shenhe instead of an animal character? Well, this would depend heavily on how well your Ganyu is built and how well Shenhe is also built. But in the most of the times, it will be easier to get damage through with an animal character instead of having to build a Shenhe. Because I don't have Mona and I don't have Kokomi either, I can't really show you what a proper rotation looks like. So here's a video demonstration from Eucharix. I will break down how you do this though. You want to apply cryo to the enemy first, Ganyu E followed by ultimate, swirl with an animal ultimate with cryo, Mona ult, then Mona E. This is followed by charge attack spams. Of course, if you have Kokomi, you will want to Kokomi E instead, but you can't ult. Now will be a really good time to talk about why Mona is such a better character than Kokomi or any other Hydro characters in this case. It's called Omen Extension. If you don't know what Mona ult does, it creates an illusion bubble, and when the bubble is popped, we will have an Omen effect applied on the enemy. Enemies with an Omen would take more damage depending on the level of talent. This Omen duration usually lasts 5 seconds, but if the bubble is popped when the enemy is frozen, the Omen timer would never start and will not start for the duration the enemy is frozen. This means the enemy is frozen for 4 seconds, the Omen will last 4 seconds plus the 5 seconds for a total of 9 seconds of Omen damage buff. Definitely use Mona if you have her instead of Kokomi, unless Mona is in another team and can fulfill better roles there. But what if you don't have Mona or Kokomi? I would just build more crit rate, because playing with any other Hydro character isn't really worth your time. It's very annoying and the damage is not that amazing either. It used to be that if you want a 9-star floor 12 or Abyss, this build will get you there 100% of the time, but now Abyss is kind of weird and it doesn't really work. This build probably won't get you the 9 stars you need, but maybe Melt Team will get you there instead. If you do want to max clear Abyss, this is where the Melt build comes in. Like the name suggests, this build focuses on doing a lot of melt shots with our arrows and doing some crazy amounts of damage, but it requires more precise timing and it's harder to play. The artifacts using this build is a 4-piece Wanders or 4-piece Shiminawa, and instead of running attack percent sand artifact, we want to be running elemental mastery instead for more reaction damage. Which set you go for will just depend on which one has better substats, so just use which one is better. And this is where I'll talk about the Hamayumi bow. If you're going to be using Shiminawa, this bow won't work, and only use this if you're using Wanders artifact, because with the Shiminawa you'll have to cast your elemental skill to have the passive activate, but then at that point you're out of energy, so Hamayumi bow won't be triggering its passive then. As for team comps, you can split this type of team into two kind of categories, one with shunning or one with animal characters. Let's talk about shunning first, as that's what I run most of the time. Because her ultimate has a high energy cost, you will need to run a battery. Don't go running her without one, it just won't won't work. There are two very good characters that could act as a battery and have more use than just a battery, and that would be Bennett and Klee. If you don't run Shunning, you can run one of two animal characters, Kazuha or Jin. Depending on who you use, your team and setup will be slightly different. If you run Kazuha, I will recommend Bennett as a pyro character. He's a great healer and damage buff. I don't recommend you running anything else, but any other pyro character can do the job. If you want to get the most damage, you can run an elemental mastery Kazuha with iridescent artifacts, but getting VV to reduce cryo resistance would take some special setup and really only works on one target. If there's a lot of enemies, I would just run a more damage orientated build with Kazuha. If you're running Jin, your choice for pyro character will have to be Bennett. Because Jin ult can't infuse an element like Kazuha, we need to infuse ourselves with pyro with Bennett ult, so Jin can use us like an infuse. For this build, I recommend just going full sub DPS with Bennett and Jin, double stacking two healers like this. Even if you don't build them as a healer, it will be enough heals for the whole team. I didn't mention Sucrose here just because she isn't really good at this type of role, but she could be used as our last character fill. And let's talk about last character fill for now. Because we're going to be close to the enemy, we're going to get interrupted if we don't have a shield character. Unless you're running Kazuha, then you can manage to somehow keep enemy inside of his ultimate while you not being close to the enemy, then you don't really need to run a shield character. But for the most of the time, we're going to be running a shield character. Zhongli is the best choice and there's no cons to running him. He's just great at everything he does. Besides for Zhongli, you're going to have to pick your poison. There's going to be a decent at shielding, but comes with one really huge con that just might be very annoying to you. Homa is great at shielding at really long rotations, like multiple rotations, but you need to throw in auto attacks between Ganyu, the attack, just to get like the shield going. It can be really annoying if you hate that type of playstyle. Shenhe is another pyro character, and because she is a pyro, we can use her like kinda as a battery, but she has the weakest shield, so you might not get through the full rotation without getting interrupted. Diona is another great shield. She can increase our elemental mastery by 200% if we're inside of her ultimate. This will increase our damage by a lot, but her ult can steal a melt away from Ganyu's, and that would decrease our DPS. So everyone has Noelle. She can be a very strong shield, and cons of one con, the cooldown is very long and doesn't match up with our rotation time. So if you don't kill enemies within one rotation, which is very unlikely, you're gonna have to wait a while for her shield to come up, which can be annoying as well. Sucrose and Venti both aren't shield characters, but they can interrupt medium or small sized enemies. Venti is better for small enemies and Sucrose is better for medium sized enemies. For Sucrose, you can also gain all elemental mastery, and if you put Swirling Tails of Dragon Slayer, you can get a lot of damage with Sucrose. If you're running the Shunning build, it's going to require some timing, so as for how you play these team comps, it's going to be a little bit dependent and it will require just a little bit of skill on your part. For Shunning, you want to Bennett ult followed by Bennett E, Shunning E for Goba, and then ult. Switch to Ganyu E if you're running Shiminawa artifacts, or don't E if you're using the Hama Yumi bow. Man, that's such a hard name to say. You want to release your charge attack right before Shunning ult hits the enemy. This takes a little bit of practice, so remove your artifacts and weapons, find a ruin guard and practice till you can pull it off consistently. As for playing the melt comp with an animal character, it's not much different than Shunning. For Kazuha, you want to have the enemy have pyro applied onto them already before you cast your ultimate to have the ultimate infused with pyro. But there is a trick with Bennett to get Viridescent to shred cryo resistance and have his ultimate infused pyro as well. What you want to do is cast Ganyu E on the enemy to apply cryo and taunting them. Cast Bennett ult away from the enemy, making sure not to hit them, but also making sure it's not too far away. And then you want to switch to Kazuha, cast your E. The first attack will hit the enemy with cryo, triggering Viridescent, and then punch attack for pyro infuse. Then you can just Kazuha ult and charge attack spam with Ganyu. For Jin, it's very simple. Just cast Bennett ult before casting Jin ult, and then you can start charge attack spamming. Also, quick note, you can actually use Ganyu ult with Jin and it won't interrupt your melts. To summarize everything up, which build should you go for? If you want a cheap and easy build, go for Freeze. If you're fighting one or two super strong enemies, then Melt. If your goal is to max clear Abyss, then definitely use Melt comp. Freeze comp just won't get you there because Abyss just keeps moving away from having smaller enemies to single enemies or even bosses, and bosses can't even be frozen, so it won't even work. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more in the future. And also, I don't know how long this video is going to be. This is supposed to be just a quick 5-minute video, but I don't think that's going to happen. And let me know in the comments below if you're going for a freeze or melt Ganyu build. Best of luck with your wishes and have a great day.